Everyone, Kristin Ciliberto here on behalf of Film Fest Report, giving you all an exclusive interview with the one and only Yvette Amirian. She is the editor behind the latest film, The Integrity of Joseph Chambers, written and directed by Robert Moitchin, a family man hoping to prove his survivalist capabilities and manliness to his family, decides to irresponsibly head off into the woods by himself and go deer hunting. This movie stars Clayne Crawford, Jordana Brewster, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. A great cast, great direction, and remarkable editing. And I'm so happy to be speaking with Yvette. This film had its world premiere at the TRIBECA Film Festival and the U.S. Narrative Competition. So please enjoy our exclusive interview. Yvette, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with Film Fest Report. I'm so excited to speak with you on behalf of this movie. So congratulations on having the film be part of like one of the biggest film festivals in New York, the Tribeca Film Festival. How does it feel to be part of that group effort to get the film into Tribeca?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for the kind words. It feels great. I mean, we were hopeful that it would land. We kept saying, to land in the right place, and it really feels like this was the right home for it. And we really appreciated their support. And I'm just really grateful to have been a part of it and to have been able to be there, met some amazing people and got some great responses to the film, which was very exciting.
Yeah, and we have to talk about that. So how did you get your feet wet into the project, and how did you get your hands on it?
So we were cutting it in the middle of the pandemic. I think it was December of 2020 when they shot it, and then I started cutting it the next month. Wow. I was introduced to the team through one of the executive producers who I happened to know, and so I was given a hard drive with all the material in January, and we just kind of started plugging away on it, Robert and I, and it was very exciting to be able to work with him. Obviously, we wish we would have been able to work together in person, but we were working remotely, and it actually worked out great. It wasn't the first project that I've cut remotely, so I'm kind of accustomed to it, I guess, but it was really great.
You can tell a lot of hard work really went into especially the editing aspect. So, and you actually answered that perfectly, since you had to work on it during the pandemic, and it worked out tremendously. So was it different? Because I was reviewing your filmography, and you worked on documentaries, and you worked on some narrative pieces. How do you distinguish between the both? What do you bring to that?
Well, I think because, I started in narrative and then kind of found my way to documentaries. And I think because I did that for so long and did nonfiction work for so long, I actually think for me, it's made me a stronger storyteller, because oftentimes in nonfiction, you don't have a script, you don't have a guide, you're really kind of figuring it out either on your own in the edit, or, thankfully, most of the time I'm working with a talented team of, producers, writers, story producers. So, I'm very accustomed to sort of building something out of nothing a lot of times. So I find narrative projects to actually be a little bit not easier. Easier is not the right terminology for it. I find that when I come across challenges in the narrative world, I'm more adept at kind of figuring it out, because I have so much of that experience of, okay, well, how do we fix this thing that doesn't seem fixable? So I'm really grateful to have had that experience. And I bring that with me to every project that I do, scripted or non-scripted. And this one in particular, we had some places where things had to be restructured, scenes had to be dropped. And so, that was the most, that was the best part of it for me, was trying to kind of solve those problems with Robert and make it the best that it could be.
That's supposed to be the unique part about editing, because editing is like a puzzle. That's the way I like to see it.
Very much.
And an ongoing puzzle. And then it's like eureka when you finish putting it together.
It's the best feeling. I always say, when I look, I cut on an avid media composer. So when I look at my timeline at the end, no matter how many times I've cut something, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing was blank, just a few weeks ago. And now it's filled with all this stuff. And it's really the best feeling. I don't know how to express it to anybody who hasn't done it. It's just very, very rewarding.
Okay, so now we gotta get into the film.
Sure.
Was it difficult to bring that tension level that Robert was looking for? What was the biggest challenge that you had working on the film?
The tension was sort of built in, and everyone who we had watch it, whether it was the producers or, people that they were able to show it to, that was a big response we kept getting, is that I feel like I'm on edge, and that's what we wanted. And a big part of building the film the way that we did was one of the things we would say is we want people to have to sit through it. We want to force them to have to go through every decision that he's making with him. And so that worked out really well. Of course, a big part of that was exhibited in the shooting of the film and the way it was acted and the way that it was directed. So a lot of that was just already there, which I was fortunate to have great pieces to work with. I would say the most challenging part, I don't know what was the most challenging part. It was, I don't want to make it sound like it was just a really fun project to cut together. So it was a great experience. There was one section of the film where he was supposed to be sort of tracking. I don't want to like give any spoilers to anybody who hasn't seen it, but there was one section of the film where he was supposed to sort of be tracking a deer, and that didn't quite come together in the edit the way that it was scripted. And so that was probably the moment in our collaborative process where I felt like he really trusted me, because he said, okay, you know, you can go and kind of like figure this out on your own. And that's where I think a lot of my nonfiction capabilities came into play, because I was able to restructure it, drop a scene, kind of figure out, I often can see things in my head, but I have to like kind of play around with it on my own to make it say what I wanted to say. And he had a really positive response to seeing that. And then we sort of went from there, and we did another, you know, version of it after that until we got it to the place where we really wanted it to be. So that section was somewhat challenging. And I think just not being able to be in the same room together obviously has its own benefits to be able to do that. But we really found, you know, amazing ways to make it work. And he's so communicative and very open. So it worked out great.
Now, what is your favorite scene in the film, without spoiling, that you really enjoyed editing the most?
See, I feel like I can't say it without spoiling it.
I know, it's the tough part.
I'll say it like this: the part where we come back to the end, if that makes sense.
Okay, from seeing it, yes, I know what you're talking about, right?
Because if I call it what it is, then people are going to know what it is when they're watching it. No, there's a moment in a film where, you know, we always talked about the film in like three pieces. There's the beginning, where it feels like a regular movie, and there's nothing with the sound, there's nothing with the editing that really makes you feel like you're going to watch anything other than what it is. It's a man who's about to go on a hunting trip. And then there's an incident that happens that kind of brings you into his mindset. And then the end, which is what I'm talking about, the cut that brings us back to the end, is what is he going to do? What is his decision going to be with this, you know, thing that has happened? And that was very much written into the script that way. And that was, I think, the piece of the script that I read and I went, oh, I have to be a part of this. It would be so cool to get to play around with this. And again, so much of it was in the way that Oscar shot it and Robert directed it. It really came to me that way. So figuring out where to make that specific cut, it might be my favorite cut I've ever made. It was so much fun to piece that together. Yeah.
I love hearing you say that. So what is, I'm wording it the wrong way. What was it like with the sound design? Because the sound design is really unique here. Because there's like at times where there's like just nature or just no sound at all. Like, did you have a hard time working with that, or did you know exactly what Robert was going for?
I didn't know exactly what he was going for. I'm not sure that he knew exactly what he was going for, because him and Peter, and they've worked together in the past, and they have such a beautiful collaboration. Peter is so talented. Peter Albrechtson, our sound designer, and William Ryan Fritsch, who's our composer, they worked together very closely to sort of create what the sound of this thing was going to be. So, you know, they would pass things back and forth. And if you listen to it, it's hard to know what's score and what's sound design, which was very much the case on his last film as well. Initially, when we were cutting it, I was doing very basic sound design. So like background, sound of the trees, sound of the birds, you know, cars, car door slamming, the stick breaking, you know, any of these specific sounds that you should have been hearing or that helped sort of bring it to life. That's generally the way that I cut. I don't like to leave things bare. I don't like black holes in audio. Even in my most rough cut, I have to have it be somewhat full. So that's just the way that I work. And then we were able to get a version of it. I think it was like in early March to Peter. He was able to do a pass on it, and then gave it back to me. So I was able to work with this, you know, initial kind of first pass of the sound design that he and Will did, and the music that he and Will did, and be able to pare it down a little bit more, because now that we had that version of the sound in, it was obvious, okay, this is running a little bit too long. This needs to be expanded a little bit. And we ended up moving some little pieces around. And so that was great, because I got to work with a version of it, and then we picture locked and passed it off to him, and he did his final pass on the sound design.
That's so fabulous. So now my last question for you is, there's not many like profound or like iconic film female editors. What do you have to say to young women who want to, or even young girls who want to get into the film business and want to edit? What's your best advice to them?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, first of all, I feel like editing was the one place when I was in film school that I felt like I just loved it. I could pass away time doing it. And thankfully, there are actually some big female editors. And I was really fortunate that some of my early career, I got to see women who were moms, women who were able to kind of balance their lives. And I felt really grateful that I had those role models, and I saw that it was doable, and thankfully was able to make a successful career out of it. I think the biggest advice, I teach at USC's film school as well as an adjunct. And the number one thing that I tell my students is that, your reputation is everything, and be kind to everyone that you meet, and collaboration is the most important thing in this business. So it's something to be cherished. Those relationships are something to be cherished and developed. And I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice is just, find the people that you like working with, that you work well with, and really nurture those relationships.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed the film, and I can't wait to see more of your work, because honestly, it was remarkable what you did. It's
wow, that means a lot.
It was like I said, it's probably one of the best editing films I've seen this entire year. So
wow, thank you. Thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Thank you. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the fabulous team that worked with us. So a lot of their work is reflected in that.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.